Hey, it's Angie. I'm a designer and developer, and in this video, I'm going to talk about how I keep my Mac organized to stay productive every day. So, first things first, keep your desktop clean. And by clean, I mean have almost nothing on it. When I start my workday, I love to see a clean desktop. No files or anything of the sort, just my wallpaper. But to be fair, as I go through my workday, I do download files, take screenshots and everything, and all of that stuff goes on my desktop because my desktop becomes my working area for the most part. So what I do is I try to organize my desktop as I go throughout the day. So once I'm done working on one particular project, I'll clean up the desktop, put the files where they need to go or trash them, and move on to the next one. Then during my daily wrap-up routine, I make sure to clean my desktop again so it's completely clear of things for the next day. So I used to be one of those people that had multiple external hard drives, but when I bought my current laptop, which is a MacBook Pro, I bought as much storage as I could afford. That way I don't have to lug around an external or multiple external hard drives. I do have one, but that's primarily what I call cold storage. It's for archives and files that I don't need any longer, but I have them basically for posterity. Now, some people would wonder or freak out a little bit about the lack of external hard drives as backups, but I keep things backed up in two ways: Dropbox and Backblaze. Now, you could argue that Dropbox isn't really a backup system, and I could see the argument for that. However, because it is in the cloud, if something were to happen to my computer, I could access it. And I have the flexibility of going to another computer for some reason and being able to access my files directly on Dropbox. Now, I'm not going to get into the benefits or the pros and cons of each one, but I will say that I have had an external hard drive fail on me, and that hard drive had a lot of important client work on it. Fortunately, at the time, and this was years ago, I had Backblaze, and all I had to do was head into my Backblaze account and ask them to send me a backup of that hard drive, which they did in a matter of 2 or 3 days. So I was up and running relatively quickly. It didn't really disrupt any of my work for very long. And so now I just try to keep my system as simple as possible because I know I can rely on Backblaze. Now, that all said, if you have a computer that doesn't have a lot of storage space simply because you didn't make that investment or you can't, which is totally understandable, then I do recommend getting an external hard drive because it is going to be worth the money. External hard drives are dropping in prices all the time, and there are some really good options out there. This is not sponsored in any way, shape, or form, but I can't emphasize enough getting a Backblaze account. So it's worth the $50 or $60 a year that it costs. Okay, so let's head into my Mac and I'll show you how I keep it organized. While I do have several folders within my home folder, the majority of my files actually live on Dropbox. So while I have everything syncing between my computer and my Dropbox account, not all of the files are actually taking up a lot of space on my computer. And that's because Dropbox allows a couple of things. First, they do what's called a selective sync. So within their settings, you can actually choose what folders or files to not sync to your computer at all. I used to use this feature pretty heavily, but it gets kind of cumbersome with the way that their settings are to decide which folders to sync or not sync. So the other thing that Dropbox does is it allows for files to just be referenced. So you can see that there are some solid green with a white check mark icons, and then there's a kind of an outline icon with a green check mark and a white background. And that's because those files are online only, as it says here in this tooltip. That means that while you can see the file name on the computer, it's actually not on your computer. It's just a reference to the file in Dropbox, in your Dropbox account in the cloud. And if I needed to pull one down, I would simply just double click on it and it would sync it down to my computer. So I've recently streamlined and simplified how I organize my files inside Dropbox. And as you can see, I've got 5 main folders, and then there's the vault that they have, which I actually don't use. I haven't exported enough yet, so I'm not using it. So real quickly, the first folder I have here is called _in, basically my inbox. And this folder is specifically for 2 things. for files and folders that people share with me. So in Dropbox, you can share folders or files with other people. And I specifically move them to this folder so it doesn't clutter up the organization that I have for myself. The other type of files and folders that I have in here is for when I do a file request for a client. So Dropbox has a feature where you can request files from someone and it gives them a link and they can just upload whatever they need. And I make sure that it goes into a subfolder, which right now is just called secure. And that's where those files go. The next folder I have is AH, which are my initials. And this is all of my personal stuff, you know, everything from my insurance files and finances and that sort of thing. There's not a whole lot in here, but it's organized in a way in order for me to keep it easy for me to reference. Next up, I've got Block 81, which is all of my business files. And this includes my client files and project files. Next up is my creative resources folder. And this is specifically for any media that either I create or I purchase or download that I use for various projects, whether it's my own projects or client projects. So things like stock photography, fonts, icons, that sort of thing. And then lastly, I have my video projects folder, which I keep separate because I do a couple of different types of videos. I do videos like this for this particular YouTube channel, but I also have a personal YouTube channel that I haven't posted to in a long time, but they're mostly like travel videos, that sort of thing. And because video files can take up a lot of space, I try to keep this as minimal and simple as possible. So that's the majority, I'd say 90% of how I organize my Mac. Like I said, I keep almost everything in Dropbox. That said, I do have a couple of other places that I keep important things. So for starters, I mentioned this external hard drive, which I call cold storage. It's a 4 terabyte SSD. And in here is where I keep archives for posterity. For example, you can see I've got a couple of old photos libraries, and I have archives for myself and archives for my business, as well as this is where I put my video projects archive. So once I'm done with a particular video and it's been edited and published and everything, I'll move it to this section, to this folder here. In addition to that, I also do use a sites folder for when I'm actually building a site locally. So this is where all of my development happens. And then finally, I actually do use a little bit the iCloud Drive. I've actually started using it primarily for my photos and videos that I take on my phone, that then it just makes it super easy to sync between my devices, my iPad, my iPhone, and my Mac. That said, there are times when I do need to grab a file or someone sends me something and I need to get it on my computer. And while AirDrop can work, sometimes it can be a little buggy. So I actually started using iCloud Drive for this. I will, for instance, scan a document with my phone, basically take a picture of it. There's a scanning feature within the Files app on the iPhone. And so I'll do that, and then I'll just place it in this iCloud Drive, and then from there I can organize it later. Well, there you have it. That's a high-level view of how I keep my Mac organized. If you saw something in there that you're a little bit curious about, because I know when I've watched similar videos, I just want to know a little bit more about a specific folder or how a certain file type gets organized, let me know in the comments and I'll consider it for a future video. See you next time.